the more I respect Master Barrel, the more I really accept him because what he does, and what he must do. Based with this episode, episode 6 of the Old Country from the Old Country from the Bumpkin Master Swordsman. I kind of want to say here is I like Master Barrel really a lot. I really do. I respect him. I really do. It's just what he does was just something very amazing, and it's basically because what he does is that it's not making him defined as a person that he's perfect. The man's not perfect. The man's really is not. The man's it's gonna have troubles. He's gonna have troubles, basically doing the things that he's supposed to do. He's not. He's not really the best Master Swordsman. He's really not. But I also want people to really to understand here is that some people may look at this anime and expect him to be like an OP kind of character, but he really is not. Take as for Kinato and Sword Art Online. Kinato is basically kind of like an OP character based on Sword Art Online. But that doesn't mean he's really actually perfect, because he's really not. Because even though he lost to Yui, basically, or was a Yuna, basically in the second season. But that doesn't mean that he's really basically a perfect swordsman based of a person. I do like Kinato a lot, but to be honest with you, I like Master Barrel a lot better. Because the reason why I like Master Barrel a lot better, because yes, for one, he's very skilled. 2, he's very, very nice. And 3, he knows what he's doing. And 4, it's not just because of his age. It's because the way that he said, how he stands himself by basically using that sword. Because the sword does not make a difference. It's basically him that holding the sword that what makes a difference. And that's what basically it feels to me. And basically that I think Master Barrel is pretty much one of my favorite characters. Probably now I would probably consider as one of my top 5 favorite characters in anime. I definitely would think so, to be honest with you, because it's just that some people would drop this series. But some people would expect him like, yeah, he should do a lot better and basically and stuff like that, because he's not. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do better. He's going to try his hardest to do whatever he can. But I want people to really to also understand, because what Master Barrel basically did is basically that he had to make choices that were unfortunate that he had to do. And I'm sure that God would basically understand. And sometimes when people are basically forced in those decisions, and sometimes we have to do what we have to do. It may be the circumstances maybe really actually is. Even though he asked God to forgive him because basically what he did. Because basically in the church, basically using the sword basically in the church, this is basically to kill all the corpses and stuff like that. He had no other choice but to do that. Because if he didn't, then he would probably lost his life. So either one, he had to kill the corpses, or either 2, he had to die. So I mean that's what he had to do. He had to make a choice. That's what he had to do, and that choice is sometimes it's hard for him to make that choices. If I was in that position, I would have done exactly the same thing. Some people may think that it's not a good thing to do that, but some people may think like, some people may not understand, or some people probably could attack him because the country or something like that will probably say like, why would you do stuff like that? Why would you do that? Because he will basically present himself because what he did. It's not his fault because those corpses were basically in the church. It was because of that bishop guy who brought those corpses basically into the church, because he was using blasphemy magic, which means is that he was using untainted magic that he should not be doing. by resurrecting the dead is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for whatsoever at all. Take that instant. As for a paladin does not tolerate when people uses dark magic or anything that is evil, basically beyond, because they take that very personal. Because the reason why they do that, because they really do, because that's just the way how they're trained, that's the way they're supposed to do, and that's what they're supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to do, because they believe in the blessings of the church, or I would say the blessings of God, basically as for themselves, because they sworn themselves not just by the sword, but by God for themselves, to take down the enemies that uses tainted magic or whatever it is that people that definitely to see, and basically stuff like that. And the reason I've also liked Master Imperial really a lot is basically to me in my own view that the man is not perfect, but he does not have to be OP like every single character that you basically see in other different anime. And I wanted to stress that enough for people to really just to understand. Some people may expect him to be perfect. Like I said before, the man is not perfect. He's not. He's gonna have mistakes. He's gonna have, basically wounds on him and stuff like that. Because he's really it's not. He doesn't use the magic. He doesn't use anything to boost his skills or anything like that. He learns from the skills based from himself. But if he's in a possible situation, then yes, he's gonna have to do what he has to do. Going to have to do basically what he has to do. And one thing I want to say here, I think this was emotional. I almost did. I almost cried a little bit. What he did basically taken away from the corpse's lives, but not only that, Minero's sister. And the reason why he did that, because he said he was sorry to her, and that's very hurtful. That really actually is. And I want to say here is basically that takes a lot of skill and a lot of anguish that he had to deal with because of what he did. Because one thing I want to say here is that I think Master Imperial would probably be scared and probably afraid to tell Miro about what happened. Because I would basically be in a position basically of that, and basically what I would tell her, to be honest with you, it's really hard for somebody to really to say, like, I mean, you can't tell a lie. Because lying's not gonna really cut it out. It's not. I think, to me, in a case I see for him is, like I said, for he had to do what he had to do. The man did not have a choice. I don't think that God would never would tempt him because of what he did. Because those are just corpses that they came from the graves and stuff like that. But when people actually do that kind of stuff, get corpses in China, resurrect them back from the dead and stuff like that. You can't do that. That's not right. That's dishonor, disrespectful, and it's not right. It's very, very wrong for somebody to really do that. And then plus, over top of that, that puts a lot of grief on Miro also as well too. I think that's for family members that probably died from passing in the war, or from a grandpa, from a dad, or a mom, or a sister, or a brother, or maybe a dog, or probably a fish, or whatever that is, maybe is. It's hard. It's hard. It's a very hard situation, and it really is. And when people tamper with graves, that's disrespectful to me. In my own view, I would definitely say, like, if I would see someone who basically would do that, I would basically just tell them, like, what you're doing is wrong, because you're tampering with the dead. Because these are bodies of people that these families, they have to go through this anguish, they have to go through that grief to bury their own family members, because what you're doing right here is wrong and disrespectful. And I would basically call them and tell them like what you're doing, because what you're doing is wrong. I've seen people, basically would just spray paint, the graves. I've heard that, but based on the news, it kind of made me sick to my stomach. It really did. But it did cause a lot of anger and sadness to the families as well too, because you don't understand the anguish and the grief that they had to go through, especially like when like a woman or a man or a father or basically or their son died in the war and stuff like that. I know the Memorial Day is tomorrow, which I definitely know that. But the reason why I'm saying all this because I want people to really to understand doing those things is not right. It's not. That's what I think. That's just my opinion. So yeah. Anyways, that's it for my anime review. Tell me what you guys think. You guys agree with me? You guys don't agree with me? What do you guys think about the episode? Do you guys like it or don't like it? So yeah. Anyways, this is Anyways, I'll see you guys there. Take care. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Don't forget to subscribe. Please consider subscribing. Please like it, give me a thumbs up or give me a thumbs down, and please thumbs up or give me a thumbs down, and please leave a comment below. Anyways, I love you guys. Take care. Hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. God bless. Remember you. Love you guys. Take care. Bye.